Here's what I would say, if I were on TV and somebody said she's a DEI candidate, I say, you know what? Kamala Harris has been a prosecutor, an attorney general, senator, biggest state of the country, vice president, and hopefully now president. She's been hearing this the whole life. It doesn't bother her. She's fine. But you know what? I hate it that our daughters are hearing this. I hate it that young women are hearing this. And you know what? I don't think Black voters and female voters are going to like hearing this very much.
Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. I'm just so pumped. We have the very perfect person for this day, this moment in time, my friend Jennifer Palmieri. She was communications director for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, and during Obama's second term in the White House, she was the co-host of the late Showtime show, The Circus. Emmy nominated again.
Emmy nominated again, Tim.
I know,
just yesterday.
We did it, Joe.
We did it.
She co-hosts the How to Win podcast with Clara McCaskill, my partner in crime on MSNBC. And her last book, which is one thing we need to talk about, She Proclaims, Our Declaration of Independence for a Man's World. You've written the book about how women politicians should deal with this moment. I think that we've got one of those right now.
We do. Yeah, great. Yeah.
Before we get to your advice for Kamala on how to kind of combat misogyny and sexism and how to, come into her power, I want to talk about somebody else first. Can we have a little fun first?
Absolutely.
How much time have you spent thinking about JD Vance lately?
More than I expected.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't think there was, I just didn't realize there was as weird, weird stuff out there about him as there is.
It's pretty
weird. And how bad, I didn't appreciate how bad he was going to be. That was a surprise to me. I did not know that he was terrible on the campaign trail as well.
You didn't like the please laugh moment? I saw Jeb this morning. We had breakfast, so I can do that. I can do it. I can make that joke. But his like please laugh, where I love you guys, he says to nobody, like the old Bud Light commercial. It's like, who's this weird guy getting drunk telling me he loves me?
Yeah. I was like, so I guess I just didn't watch him on the campaign trail in 2022. I guess he really wasn't on the campaign trail, right? Maybe this is why they didn't really have him do a lot, like when he was running against Tim Ryan in that Senate race. So, and I was a little surprised at just how off the charts and just gnarly the like the misogynistic stuff is too.
Yeah. Well, I want to run through some of those. I want to do a little JD Vance greatest hits for a Friday for the weekend pod, because I got to tell you, I don't know about you, my Instagram feed of moms in my life and women in my life who are not, I'm not talking about, the Jen Palmieris, the Marcy.
Right.
I'm not talking about the activists. I'm talking about moms from school. They don't like some of these clips. So let's take a listen to JD Vance talking about childless cat ladies.
Look, what I was basically saying is that we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made. And so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it?
Okay. You do know, my favorite part of that clip, as I always mention, is that Pete Buttigieg gets thrown in there. Very subtle stuff there. Really subtle. Now, Pete ended up having 2 kids subsequent. That was an old clip from like a couple years ago. But very subtle homophobia there. The childless cat lady thing, though, that was like we point and laugh at the crazy MAGA right clip for a while. Like it's been going around. But now that he's on the VP ticket, and now that Kamala is the one that he's running against, the potency of that, I feel like is different, and it makes people mad. It makes women mad in particular. Anyway, talk about how that can be potent as a political thing.
It really makes women mad. And I'm visiting my parents in Rhode Island right now, and I was at the grocery store yesterday, and some woman in one of the aisles recognized me from Morning Joe, I guess, and she had a towering stack of cat food cans, and she just looked at me with this big mischievous smile on her face and just like threw them into her shopping cart and like struts away. Like it just is. It is. I think there's something empowering about putting a woman at the top of the ticket, and we can talk a lot about like why this time it feels there's less fretting about it because it happened, and just kind of happens, and then like
it was thrust upon us. Yeah,
you don't need to fret about whether or not it's a good idea. Oh, is she elected? Blah 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 blah. Like it's happening, and then it is. But it's shocking to me because until last week, the Republican ticket was in a strong position, right? That they, instead of choosing somebody who could be appealing to women, which you think they might want to do, right? And instead of having a Thursday night slate of speakers tonight that Trump spoke that could be appealing to women, instead they just like double down on like as Tim Walz is like my new fave, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. I didn't really know. I didn't know anything about him until this week, but like he calls him like the He-Man Women's Haters Club.
He also has leaned into something that I've been pushing for a while, which is the weird. Call them fucking weird. They're weird. Call them weird. Like they want to act like they're the normal bros who like hang out at the cool at like the lacrosse guys table. But no.
Right.
They were the weirdos sitting next to the lacrosse bros table, trying to be friends with them by like making very strange attacks on the girls that wouldn't sleep with them. Like that's the table they're at. They're at the weird guys table. It's all high school cafeteria for me. That's important.
Because we never evolve evolve beyond high school. I mean, people, and it's just human nature. We like to think that it's about being young, but really it's just human nature. And I also think that it's like coming at a moment with like Taylor Swift just like being such a huge phenomenon, and Beyonce being such a huge phenomenon, and Taylor Swift being childless and loving cats. And so like it's like you're just poking just like all the wrong things with what Vance is put.
So then on top of making fun of childless cat ladies and like saying that childless cat ladies are running the world, which is also the weirdest thing. Like if you looked at pictures of who the CEOs are of the companies like that, it's offensive and weird and false. Like it's all of them.
Right.
On top of that, there's some kind of policy implications that are more serious and pretty scary. Let's go through a couple of them. The first one, here's JD talking about how parents should get an extra vote. Let's take a listen.
Let's give votes to all children in this country, but let's give control over those votes to the parents of those children. When you go to the polls in this country as a parent, you should have more power. You should have more of an ability to speak your voice in our democratic republic than people who don't have kids. Let's face the consequences and the reality. If you don't have as much of an investment in the future of this country, maybe you shouldn't get nearly the same voice.
All right. And then, Jen, you and I, we were on the road together in Arizona. We were at a pretty hot event.
My God.
I mean, it was hot, but it was
also hot.
Hostile. With Blake Masters and my friend Rick Grinnell. Here's Blake. You remember Blake, failed Senate candidate Blake Masters. He was responding to that. You might think that people right now who are currently running would be like, "Ooh, JD was just joking" or whatever. Parents shouldn't get an extra vote. We shouldn't treat women without children as less than human. But no, Blake Masters doubled down. Political leaders should have children. Certainly, they should at least be married. If you aren't running or you can't run a household of your own, how can you relate to families or govern wisely? So they're just like rolling with this,
And like run. Also, there's just like some of these words are. Also, is Blake Masters married?
Yes.
I guess.
Yes.
Okay. I remember covering when he was the Senate candidate against Mark Kelly, and women at a Carrie Lake event telling me that they weren't going to vote for him because his ads and his posters were scary and off-putting.
Creepy.
Creepy. These are women at a Carrie Lake event who were really excited about Carrie Lake, and Kristi Noem. She was there too, and they're not going to vote for Blake Masters because they found him off-putting and scary and too intense and having mean-looking signs. So and it's not just, but also there's just like a lot there, like how you like running households, and I guess they must, what does it say about them? They must think they can't win women and they can't win swing voters, and all they can do is jack up turnout. But I don't see, sometimes you can explain why something is happening, but I really don't get this. I really don't get why they continue to think that that's in their interest, or they just may have one speed, right? Like, I think that's also what we saw at the Republican convention was they have one speed, which is grievance. And when they try to go to someplace else, they're just low energy. Sorry. I know you just had.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Hey, 2 hits on Jeb already in this podcast, catching strays left and right. I'm floating him for the Veep stakes, try to get a little bit of balance. The thing about the Masters thing, I think that these guys are just a little brain broken. I think that they've been listening to Tucker Carlson's podcast too much.
You think they believe it?
Yeah, I don't really think it's a strategy. Yeah, I think that they think that. I think women have probably been mean to them, and I think that they look at society and they're like, yeah, the problem is that we need to go back.
Yes, everything.
They think we do need to go back.
They do think we need to go back.
We're not going back. We need to go back. Women should stay at home. It's good for the family. And they read these like weirdo, Catholic integralist bloggers, and then they watch Tucker Carlson, and then they, and then they tie it into gender transitioning, and I do think their brains have just gotten warped into this kind of online bro world, and then they say stuff out loud like women who are childless should have less voting power than women with children. And it's like, they don't know how that lands with people like maybe women who want to have kids, but couldn't, for example.
Right.
How it lands with them.
For example, there's a lot of us like that are like that. And then, but it does. And I think that having the woman at the top of the ticket, there's like a big thing with the Clinton campaign. Did having Hillary as the Democratic nominee draw out Trump on the Republican side? Did it just, there are lots of reasons why Trump and the MAGA world is appealing to a big part of America, but there's also this sort of, almost mystical overlay of people in America coming to terms with the fact that women in charge is no longer an exception, but becoming the norm. That this is like, like that and having and I do kind of think that is what the fierce fighting about taking away women's rights. At some level, that is what it's about. It's like, we need to control these women because they have upended everything. We need to go back, right? Yeah. And now you have a woman at the top of the ticket, and it's probably triggering.
I think that it's definitely triggering. Side. And speaking of, and I think that some of these guys are just shitposting idiots, but some of them are reading people that have very dark views. Megan McCarthy messaged me and pointed me to the policies in Romania in the 60s to the 80s, and Ceausescu, and she flags this. They banned contraception and abortion and imposed a celibacy tax on families that had fewer than a certain number of children. And then they had state doctors conducting gynecological examinations in the workplace of women of childbearing age. Now, I don't know that we're going all the way there, right?
Right, but it's on the table, and it's women. It's certainly like within women's imagination. After you take away Roe, and like you look at the southeastern United States and what's not allowed there, and that's on the table.
And it's also, that's the thing about the Project 2025 that I keep wanting to point out. That's the real scariest, the creepiest, the weirdest. Is like, okay, maybe Donald Trump doesn't want to do that, right? But the weirdest dude that they put in HHS that they vetted, like, actually is into Ceausescu. I guess that's the point that everybody needs to really just kind of take in. Like, the types of people that are going to be staffing a Trump 2.0 are not.
And he's going to let them do it, right? Yeah, I mean, what we know is that his record is that he always lets the most MAGA, the most crazy, the most extreme elements do what they want to do and then be proud of it.
Yeah. Until they cause problems for him, which might be happening with JD Vance right now. That, oh my God, there's a lot of second guessing. He hates this. And he's so mad at Don Jr. Oh, he's so mad at Don Jr. because I brought him up every podcast this week.
Is that why Eric spoke instead of Don?
Yes. Don Jr. could not be in a bigger doghouse right now. It is really, just warms my cockles just thinking about it. Okay, one more. JD Vance before we get to the new presidential nominee. Again, on the serious side of things, taking this from shit posting to serious policy. Here is Vance on blocking travel for abortion and maybe the need for a federal law on that.
Okay, look, here's a situation. Let's say Roe versus Wade is overruled. Ohio bans abortion, in 2022 or 2024. And then, every day, George Soros sends a 747 to Columbus to load up disproportionately Black women to get them to go have abortions in California. And of course, the left will celebrate this as a victory for diversity. That's kind of creepy.
Health justice is when we exterminate
that's right,
working class Black people.
Something like that could. I mean, that would be a really weird turn of events that could happen.
Yeah.
Yes,
and it's like, if that happens, do you need some federal response to prevent it from happening? Because it's really creepy. And I'm pretty sympathetic to that, actually.
Jen, I mean, that might be the one that's the most damaging politically.
That is, well, because it's very real. It's not just offensive. It doesn't, that is like, you're truly messing with women's healthcare. And it doesn't stay contained to the states that where these things are, where the, procedures are banned. It's like affecting doctors everywhere. It's affecting people who go to med school. It's like, young women are making decisions about where to go to college based on where they have rights and where they may not. Like, that is a very real, that's a very real health risk. And and that is, that puts, as much as Trump tries to take abortion off the table, that, it's just, even I think Democrats will be successful in making him own, not just, as Kamala Harris calls them, the Trump abortion bans.
Yeah,
that's what they are. They're Trump abortion bans. And the 6-week ban in Texas, that's a Trump abortion ban. He made that possible. But when you have the running mate saying, talking about these kind of measures as well, women will take those very seriously.
Yep. And something I've been saying for a long time, you've got rich Democratic friends, sometimes call you for advice. So the bros might care about this too. I think that
of course.
There could be a super PAC that could make Mike Johnson and JD Vance's views a little famous. I think that there's a category of bro out there that is a barstool bro that thinks Donald Trump is based or whatever and doesn't think he really is going to do anything, but also has their own interests, personal interests, and maybe wanting women to be able to have a choice of their own. Right. And I don't know if they want creepy Mike Johnson and weird JD Vance, creating federal rules about what should happen, if they have a big night at the frat house.
It's a good micro-targeting project. You're right.
Let's do strategery here.
Okay.
So your other book was Dear Madam President, an open letter to women who will run the world. Well, now
a letter of advice to the first woman president. That's what it was.
There you go. So let's just start at square one here. Obviously, there's been a ton of incoming attacks on her. Some of them racially coded, gender coded, some of them just policy, some of them not even coded, just straight racist and sexist. What kind of advice do you have for her and the team on how to think about all that?
They do. They're very, her team is very deft at this. They spend a lot of time with researchers understanding how people process the kind of questions that people have for women candidates, which are different than male candidates, and also how why these kind of attacks come your way and what's the best way to build up respond but not undermine the candidate, right? So let's go with the DEI candidate. That is what they're fundamentally trying to do there is say that she is not qualified for the job. And what I would say in response is that she, she's not qualified for the job. And then there's an element of grievance, right? That like people are getting promoted that shouldn't get promoted and they're getting promoted.
I'm getting screwed over. My son's getting screwed over.
Right. So there is that element too. And I think that the most effective way to come back there is to talk about the qualifications of Kamala Harris, that she is more qualified than Donald Trump or JD Vance and more prepared to do this job than either one of them. Even though Donald Trump had the job, but he did such a bad job, he got impeached twice for doing a bad job, right? Yeah. So she is, people don't, like I said, it's not like, it's not. Yeah.
Contrast that with what's a bad response to it.
A bad response is, this is racist and sexist. And that's a bad response, not just for her. That is a bad response for surrogates on the outside who are trying to help her, because that makes her a victim. And first of all, women candidates cannot be victims. They got to show, and things, views on women candidates are always changing. And people do think that women are strong and they think women are tough. And you have to lean into this and say, here's what I would say. If I were on TV and somebody said, Kamala Harris, they said she's a DEI candidate. I say, you know what? Kamala Harris has been a prosecutor, an attorney general, senator, biggest state of the country, vice president, and hopefully now president. She's been hearing this the whole life. It doesn't bother her. She's fine. right? She can handle it. But you know what? I hate it that our daughters are hearing this. I hate it that young women are hearing this. And you know what? I don't think Black voters and female voters are going to like hearing this very much. So what have you done there? We constantly have to remind voters of a woman's qualifications for the job, even when they're in the job. These are still, it's not like it's all the world's trying to hold women back. That's not what's happening. But it's still kind of a new thing, and we have to be reminded of that. Also, I never said she's been subject to racist attacks her entire career. I just evoke for you the roles that she's played. And you can imagine if she's the prosecutor in San Francisco, 20 years ago, what that was like as DA, what kind of attack she might have gotten. You're getting it, but I'm not saying she's a victim of racist attacks. And also that's what they want to do. They're trying to keep this in the race and gender space. And what you want to say is they're coming after her because she is qualified. She is prepared to do the job. Neither one of them are. And they see that she's electric on the trail. So they're trying, that is what they're trying to do. But it's not, and a lot of people now, when you're not her and you're not her campaign, I do think it's important to make, you establish her credibility, her credentials. And, to know, but these kinds of attacks, they're going to turn off other voters because they are racist and they're sexist. Right. But you got to protect her from that. And she's tough. She can handle it. But, it's bad it's bad for young women to hear this. And it's bad that that side is spewing that stuff in the world that young girls are going to hear.
Yeah, I do wonder just on this issue. I always think about, I know this is a fake person, but the character in The White Lotus, the mother, she's at breakfast. You know that show, The White Lotus on HBO? Yeah. It's like a bunch of rich people out in an
island. I know.
And the mother,
Connie Britton is a friend of mine, so I know.
Hey, Connie.
There you go.
We'd love to
I'm sure she's a listener.
Well, we would love it. We love Connie. We admire, we revere Connie actually here on this podcast. Yeah. It wasn't her character. It was one of the other characters that says the mom's like, my son is just getting screwed over trying to get into colleges, right? Because everybody these days, because so it's even a mom, right? But it's kind of the mom that you're going to need on this stuff. So is there a way to kind of engage with those kind of concerns? Do you think that's useful or productive?
I don't really know that there is, other than that other than having women feel like, wow, she's worked really hard to get where she is. Right. Yeah. And I think if it's like she, and when you're saying she's been at this she was AG and DA for almost 14 years before she was a United States Senator. It's like a long, hard, that's like, what you're trying to evoke is like a long, hard slog of having done a lot of hard work to earn where she is. But I don't know. I mean, I know what you're saying, but I just don't know if you can get too right. There's only so much you can do. Right.
Are there other things just about?
There's other reasons why that woman should not vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Right. That's what
seriously. That they're going to do the lightweight thing. I think about the foreign policy,
the lightweight thing.
Yeah, that's what they're going to try to do with her. They're going to.
I know, but I find it. She's a lightweight. JD Vance is not a lightweight. JD Vance has been a senator for about 10 minutes. He wrote one book. He's gotten propped up by Peter Thiel his whole career, and she's got a 20+ year in elected office. Like really hard jobs, and she's a lightweight. Donald Trump's has won one race in his entire life. He can't complete a sentence, and she's lightweight. I think that it is so. I think that
offense.
And the thing, there's offense, and and also the thing with it is that in my responses, I know that I know just because I know a lot about this, I'm reaffirming all the things people need to hear about her, even if she wasn't getting attacked, right? Yeah. So there are ways to deal with this stuff that there was not when Hillary ran in 2016.
In what way? Talk about that more.
There's just a lot more women leaders, right? It's just become more normal. There's a generation, I know Harris technically is a baby boomer, but Gen X is a vibe and she's got it, right? Gretchen Whitmer, another Gen X leader, comes under a lot of attacks. And I've talking, specifically with Whitmer about this, where she said, I saw Hillary get attacked. I saw Jennifer Granholm when she was the first woman governor of Michigan get attacked. I know it's not on the level, so I'm not going to let it bother me or stop me. Right. And so, and I think you kind of saw like a switch go off in Harris about 8 months ago where she's like, oh, people are going to criticize me no matter what. I'm fine, whatever. And she is like taking the field with a lot of confidence. And, Hillary was the before times. Anything that seemed to, any criticism of her, people thought was legitimate criticism of hers and didn't pause to think, oh, maybe she's just a little confounding to me because I haven't seen a woman in this role before, as opposed to there's just something about her I don't like.
Yeah. That's
right. So that's really,
there's some differences. I know the difference between Hillary and Kamala. Is one, Hillary was the target and victim, we could really say, of slander for like 2 decades. That was just deep in the water table, in addition to the misogyny, right? Like just the personal, which Kamala hasn't really had. On the other hand, Hillary, and so this is what I'm more interested in your take on. On the other hand, Hillary, she was Secretary of State, right? So it was hard to say about Hillary that like she isn't up for standing up to Putin, or she you know what I mean? With Kamala, I do think some people don't exactly know what her foreign policy experience is, and then there's the implicit misogyny. So what do you think about that? Kind of how to handle the toughness on the world stage?
Yeah, a couple of things about that. I saw Ben Rhodes. I saw both Ben Rhodes and Tony Blinken talk about her, and this is what I feel like. The cabinet can be really good surrogates for her because they can talk about working with her in the job that she did. And, Tony went through, I shouldn't call him Tony, Secretary Blinken call him Tony.
He's Tony on this
podcast. He went through a litany of, places he's been with her, problems they've dealt with together. And Ben, I have to say, and I have to text him about this, was particularly so effective that one of the women researchers I work with texted me and she was like, Ben Rhodes was perfect. Because what he talked about wasn't just, I've been in these rooms with her. We talked about like, she's been in some really tough, I've been in really tough meetings with her with really hard discussions, and she stands up to, whoever it is. Right. So it's not just, it's like evoking for people the context of what is that experience? Okay, don't just say the litany of the things she's done. What's the context of what that says about her and the qualities of leadership that she has, and reaffirming those. But I do think, there's a really big, important structural issue here that I think is going to work in her favor that I want to mention too. But I think that the deeper you and I are getting this conversation, you can see how compared to Trump and Vance, she can emerge as the tougher, stronger, clearly more experienced, more prepared leader. And the big thing going for her, though, is the 100 days and not having gone through a primary. Why has America never had a woman yet president? It's because one of the reasons is our primary system, the way we elect presidents, really disadvantages women because, and here, look at 2020, 6 women ran, very experienced, Harris, Gillibrand, Warren, Klobuchar, Tulsi Gabbard. Okay, well, we're going to set her aside. 5 great women. And it's really, but what was all the coverage? Beto, Buttigieg, Bernie, and Biden. Beto and Buttigieg, not nearly as experienced as any of the women that I just mentioned, but we recognize them right away. A lot of potential, earnest young guy, the floppy hair. You see RFK. You see, we get it. We see, we get excited by them, and it just takes a long time to break through.
Beto was a little dreamy. We just have to acknowledge dreaminess is dreamy. Dreamy is dreamy, no matter the gender.
Not my jam. Nice guy. But anyway. But see, this is all in your head. It's all in your head. So you either never break through, or is what happened with Clinton is that we had so many attacks that you come into the general election with a lot of baggage and a lot of questions about like, why is there something about her I just don't like? And Harris has been presented to us as the solution, the winner. She's not someone, and also ambition is such a big thing. She's not someone who sought this out. She was loyally standing by her man, Joe Biden, just being a great number 2. And he asked her to do this. He said, she is the person I want to do this. So she is coming forward to us as a clear winner, everyone rallying behind her. I think we probably don't give enough credit to President Biden and how important it was that he endorsed her, that he said she's the one, and everyone rallied around her. And now she is coming to us not as someone like, oh, she's seeking that she wants to be the first woman president. She's always wanted that. It's like she's solving a problem. And that I think that's partly why some of the memes that used to hurt her, like coconut tree, people love now, but a couple months ago they didn't. It was a thing a couple months ago and people didn't love it. People didn't used to love her laugh. And instead everyone is just, the response is, the right tries to push something and people are like, I love her, I got her back. And I think it's partly about the scenario by which she became the leader. And this is often how women break that glass ceiling, by the way, in other countries. It's this situation where something happened to the man. They were a number two. Something happened. They had to take over.
Yeah.
And
we did an article about Jacinda and the parallels between Jacinda
and Julia Gillard in Australia.
Yeah.
Probably 10 years prior to Jacinda. Same deal, same situation.
Similar to one thing that she has done, which I've liked. This is that this is appealing to the Bulwark crowd, which was yesterday. On this question of how you balance strength with care, strength with care, strength with patriotism, with also progressive values. I thought she was very strong in her statement after a meeting with Bibi. Here's a written statement though about the protests. I condemn any individuals associating with the brutal terrorist attack organization Hamas, which is vowed to annihilate the state of Israel. Pro-Hamas graffiti and rhetoric is abhorrent. I condemn the burning of the American flag. That flag is a symptom of our highest ideals as a nation. This is somebody that's in it to win it, Jen. This is somebody that is in it to win it.
I love it so much. She is just like,
boom,
boom, shutting it down. And the declarative, there's no caveats. It's just like all declarative set. It's just like USA, you want to stand up and salute. And, it's been 6 days, 5 days. But they have been really deft. And also hats off to the Biden team. Because by the way, everyone's like, oh, Harris's team is so great. It's like, it's the Biden team mostly.
Except for with a couple of key cogs that might have been problem people missing. But we're not going to do that today. We're not going to do that on today's pod. And also
Brian Fallon, who I have to say.
We love Brian Fallon.
Brian Fallon. And Brian Fallon has been in it, man. Mm-hmm. He has been through the wars. So, really good.
Yeah, a couple of the people around Biden not as involved.
Yeah. Kirsten Allen,
but they're
VP's
doing great.
comms person too.
VP's people are doing great.
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
I want to do just really quick a fun one. Did you hear this on Fox yesterday morning? This was Fox and Friends doing an accidental ad for Kamala Harris. Let's take a listen.
Also hurt the conviction rate, which we're not going to please many in the minority community, went from 52% to 67%. So that was better for some and not good for others.
Well, let's just put that on TV into the Green Bay media market. Can we run that?
Yeah,
her
absolutely.
Conviction rate went up. I'm sure black people are going to be so upset that she convicted criminals. What?
I know. They don't, because this is I think partly they're stuck in a thinking that it's a primary. It's not a primary. She won the primary. She won the primary big, right? The degree to which it lasted about 12 hours. She won that big. And then also I think they're thinking the stuff we hit her with before is going to work again. That like really what it's about, like all the stuff, like kind of memes about her is all about authenticity, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing. But she's conquered that now because of because she's coming into this as the answer, the solution that everybody was looking for, and having proved to herself as 3.5 years as Biden's vice president. So they're not gonna find that stuff it's not gonna work. It's not gonna cause her the problems on the Democratic side and some swing voters that it caused for Clinton. It's just not.
I agree with that. I don't think it's going to work for a variety of reasons. Here's what I think could work. We have 5 minutes. Let's focus on, we've done a lot of dunking. Let's focus on what could work. She ran way too far to the left in 2019. I don't believe it to be authentic Kamala, just if you look at the holistic of her record, but the audio and the video, we played the Dave McCormick ad yesterday.
It's not an ad, by the way. That thing is 91 seconds long.
Okay, I know.
So obviously it's not
they're going to cut that stuff into ads. They're going to shorten it.
Why haven't they done that yet?
Pick the best 4.
Why haven't they done that yet?
I agree. They should. They're not exactly kind of firing on all cylinders down there in Mar-a-Lago right now. I don't know if you've noticed that. They're a little bit lost on what to do.
It's weird. Like I don't know. Some of them are effective. La Vida and Susie.
Knows what he's doing. He did the Swift boats. That's my point. He did the Swift boats. He's going to be able to dial in on something.
They'll figure it out. They'll figure that out.
Okay,
yeah, for sure.
And maybe it's the border. Maybe it's her views of decriminalizing the border. Maybe it was, she did say one time she was supportive of the defund the police movement. That's out this morning. She has been against, some of the energy drilling, supportive of Green New Deal. So I guess I just think about when you think of, I mentioned this yesterday, some of the key voters here are back to our people. Atlanta suburbs, Philly suburbs, the people that voted for Biden that are Republicans, they voted for Brian Kemp and they voted for Biden. They're really Republicans, but they hate Trump. Can the Republicans effectively turn her into a California far left liberal that does not that turns off the Brian Kemp Biden voter in Georgia, and that's just enough on the margins? That worries me. I think that is the one thing I've seen that has a little bit of potential effect. Well, how would you? Yeah,
it's legit. That's legit. I think I would try to lay down record now, right? Because you're right. There are those clips that I've seen. They seem to be all from the 2019 Democratic primary, as opposed to positions that she acted on and the positions that she had. I would do a lot of bio now as a, what's the word I'm looking for? To protect yourself.
Prosecutor, center, pro-capitalism.
Here's her record. This is what you can count on Kamala. This is what you can count on Kamala Harris to do. When she was a prosecutor, she did this. When she was a senator, you saw her in these tough situations where she, like in the hearing rooms. And as vice president, by the way, United States energy development, domestic energy development, the highest it's ever been. U.S. oil production, the highest it's ever been. So I think you got to come in with that, like what you can count on her to do based on what she's done before, right? That's different than there was a couple of statements from 2019, and you can't get too wrapped around the axle about that, right? Because I don't agree with a lot of those things she said, but I'm going to vote for her. There's millions, right? And then you got to go to contrast. But I think you have to lay down the actual record of what she's done, and I would make that. I would have here's what she's done. Be the thing.
Does she have to hippie punch anything a little bit?
I don't know what that
shot?
means.
You don't? It's like where you take a gratuitous shot at the left on something to just demonstrate actually, I think it was really silly that they wanted to do this thing on the border on immigration or on energy or something.
Maybe.
Does she have to say she has to change her mind? I changed my mind on that.
No, I don't think you have to, you do these, you iterate on this stuff, right? So I would go in strong with strong bio of what her actual record is. And then you kind of iterate on what, I don't think, for example, I think that statement yesterday about the protests was, she didn't go out of her way to hit the left, but that gives you a pretty strong signal of where she's coming from. So I don't know that we used to call them sister soldier moments, right?
I like hippie punching better, but I hear you.
Hippie punching is good. I don't I would not. You gotta watch. It's more important to be authentic. I think in these days than look for something contrived. I'm very much not for contrived.
Yeah. Okay. Final do and don't, dear Madam President, advice for all of the white guy operatives out there giving advice on TV. Do and don't
for things like that. Really be wary when you're the big. There's just something about her, or don't, when it's when you have a critique that you can't quite pin down and it's a generality, you got to check yourself and think about where it is really coming from. And then just like I said before, understand that she it's just different what you need to do to boost women candidates. And it is it's the credentialing, it's the backing up of the qualifications, and doing that not as something she has to prove, but as a good contrast point to Trump and Vance, because she's got more experience in both of them.
Amen. Jen Palmieri, my friend, Dear Madam President is the book, an open letter to the women who will run the world. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I didn't get a chance to ask you about JD Vance's love affair with couches. That's okay for another time. His sofa passion.